I see two teams on a collision course in the NFC, and woo, that game can be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that here today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello. Welcome to Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of the local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I'm the host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Julian Council. And here are some of the things that we will go over for you today. A broke clock is right twice a day. Now I'm going to give Tyler Rowland a little bit credit. Him and Gino, they chose violence when the Titans were going to beat the Texans. And I said, are y'all crazy? Well, guess what happened? I'm wrong, and I'm going to admit it right here in front of everybody. Chiefs still barely winning. Julian Council will tell us why that barely winning will eventually turn into barely lost. That's going to cost the Kansas City Chiefs if they don't get their act together. And at the top, the Lions and Eagles are on a collision course to see who represents the NFC in bruising fashion. So we'll make sure that we tap into that. As always, man, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also, make sure you slide on over and check out Locked On NFL on Amazon Music. Make sure you check us out. We'll be there, all right? So, listen, Julian, it looks like this thing is getting to a head now, right? Coming to a head where there are two teams that are separating themselves from everybody else in the NFC. We knew about the Lions, but now the Eagles are starting to flex a little bit on everybody.
Yeah, that feel-good story down in Washington. Not feeling so great right now after a loss to the Cowboys. Cooper Rush led Cowboys on Sunday. Still feel like Washington's got a great chance to get that wild card spot, but the Eagles once again are set to win the NFC East and 7 wins in a row. I know 4 weeks into the season, people are talking about, all right, is Nick Sirianni going to stick around? Jalen Hurts, is he going to be able to bounce back off of last year? Hey, Saquon looks good, but is this going to be enough? And what do you know? 7 straight wins. Philly is looking like the class of the NFC East once again, and maybe the class of the NFC, except there's another team in Detroit, though. That's the best team in the NFL, in my opinion.
No doubt about it. It's something they both have in common. Offensive line, smash mouth, defensive playmakers, and the ability to run on the back end of your defense and keep people from scoring on you. Listen to my man Gino tell you about the Philadelphia Eagles.
Saquon Barkley deserves a Hollywood Walk of Fame star after this performance. I'm Gino Camilleri, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast, and the Philadelphia Eagles walk out of LA with a win 37-20, and Saquon Barkley, man, oh man, did he put on a show with over 300 yards from scrimmage, over 250 yards on the ground, setting an Eagles franchise record for rushing. He is worth more than the $12 million that he is getting paid. And man, oh man, what a performance from Vic Fangio and the defense. After they allowed a quick touchdown to the Rams, they only allowed 6 points the rest of the game outside of a touchdown in garbage time. They moved to 7 straight victories, 2 games ahead of Washington in the win column, 3 ahead in the loss column. Tune in for more as we continue to recap this game. I'm Gino Camilleri, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
Doesn't look like I was too far off a couple of weeks ago when I started saying, hey, man, there's somebody else outside of Baltimore who might be able to think about an MVP race, and that is Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I would love for that to be true, but we know how this thing works. The quarterbacks get it, and we were talking Lamar all season long. Then Lamar didn't have a great game last Sunday against Pittsburgh, and what do you know? Josh Allen puts on that cape, goes out there and beats the Chiefs, and the media folks who have been begging to get Josh Allen an MVP for years, even though when he gets to the playoffs, you can't beat that man Mahomes. And Buffalo can't get to the Super Bowl. But hey, got to give the guy the MVP. He's going to probably win it. It's just one of those, it's not even a lifetime achievement award. It's just like, hey, it's your turn. We really desperately want to give you this, even if you're not the most valuable player in the NFL. But it kind of feels like it this way this year after seeing all the losses of personnel they lost this offseason in Buffalo. But yeah, Saquon's been fantastic. And I've never been a huge advocate of paying running backs because we've seen far too many times where you can get a guy in the 7th round like Isaiah Pacheco and win 2 straight Super Bowls with him. So why spend money on a big-time running back? But guys like Saquon Barkley are different. Guys like Christian McCaffrey are different, and you're seeing that impact here in Philadelphia this season with Saquon in that backfield with Jalen Hurts.
They transcend the position because they're just good football players. Now, it's incumbent and up to whoever pays those good football players to allow them to be good football players and not just make them a running back. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then you have to play behind their strengths, and that's what both of those teams, both of those players, especially Saquon at this point. I got to give a shout out to Vic Fangio too, because there were 2 linebackers on that roster. Bond is one, and Nakobe Dean was the other. And all of a sudden, everybody said Philly needs linebackers. No, they didn't. They needed Vic Fangio to make those linebackers good, and that's exactly what he's done.
Let's point this out too about Philly, and because I'll be remiss if we miss this out. Bryce Huff on IR, one of their key pass rusher, that they got from New York. It was basically a swap between him and Hassan Reddick this offseason. He's on IR, going to miss the next 3 weeks. They lost Brandon Graham for the rest of the season last night with a torn tricep. So that's something to monitor defensively moving forward. But you're right. Vic Fangio's done a great job there in Philadelphia, basically being that head coach of that defense, opposite of Nick Sirianni as head coach of that offense and of the team, of course. So that's one area to look at with Philadelphia moving forward as they are a Super Bowl contender, but now down a critical piece in Brandon Graham and going to get Bryce Huff back at some point.
That's a very good point. See, I told y'all, local experts. See, I got y'all all in one little lane, and my man Julian, no, we got to think about this too. I tell you what, just in case y'all just forgot that quick, because for the last 7 minutes we were talking about Philadelphia. Don't let Matt Derry have to tell you right now, just in case you forgot. Remind me to introduce myself. Here he is talking about those Lions because they won again.
The Detroit Lions handle their business on the road, knock off the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday, 24-6. The defense pitches a second-half shutout. The offense did what they needed to do in a methodical win today. 2 touchdown runs from Jahmyr Gibbs, a touchdown run for David Montgomery. Think about this and how dominant Gibbs and Montgomery have been. No backs in NFL history have ever had back-to-back seasons where each guy has rushed for 10 touchdowns. That's now happened in Detroit with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, credit the defense, lots of injuries yet. They hold the Colts to nothing in the second half, harassed Anthony Richardson all day, made plays when they had to. Again, a methodical win. Lions take care of business. That's 9 straight wins to get to 10-1 as they win 24-6 over the Colts.
Julian, for me, it's all about identity, and both of those teams have an identity. And Detroit is probably the leader in the NFL of an identity, and that the first word in there, if you look up the definition, the first word in their vocabulary would be toughness, and I love it.
Yeah, I love it too, and that's basically what Dan Campbell's been about since day one. I know we all mocked the biting knee situation because that was a wild thing to say, man. Like we can't even sitting here like hindsight 2020, that's still just out of pocket, but they've lived by that mantra, and they have absolutely embarrassed a ton of teams out here. And you look at this defense the last couple of weeks, that is 10 straight quarters that they have given up 0 touchdowns. It is 3 straight weeks they have shut out their opponents in the second half. Just stop playing with the Lions, man. And I'm sitting here hoping that they stay healthy. I know Aiden Hutchinson's out for the rest of the year. Maybe he can come back. I doubt that's going to be the case. This is the best team in football by far, and it would be a travesty if they're not able to come back off of what they did last year, blowing that game in San Francisco that they should have won, and not stay healthy enough to win the Super Bowl this year. This is clearly the best team in the NFL, and I'm hoping for the city of Detroit, for Dan Campbell, that organization, that they can get it done.
Me too, man. And, you mentioned Kansas City, who, we all thought was the best team in the NFL. They have the same record as the Detroit Lions, I think, right now. And that's the team that they would have played last year. Ooh, what happens if they play them this year? I don't think Julian Council thinks they're going to get there. We'll talk about the champions in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Hillsdale College. Listen, man, it's never too late to get smarter, especially if all you're doing is wasting your time peeling through senseless stuff on social media and people arguing that don't make a lot of sense. If you want to get smarter and use your time, which is the most precious commodity you have to do so, Hillsdale College is a place where you can, because they are a sponsor and they are offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including the Constitution 101, the meaning of history and the Constitution, introduction to free market economics, the great American story, and much, much more. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced, so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. HILLSDALE.edu/locked-on. And today's show is sponsored by our friends over at Prize Picks. Man, I hope y'all are finding y'all's way to win y'all some money, even if your team like mine is not playing well. Prize Picks is the biggest and the best place to get real money sports action on your games. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 10 times or 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and the way you do that is to go to Prize Picks, go and download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll say it again. Locked On NFL, all one word. Put that in when you download the app, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure you understand that Prize Picks is where you have to run your game. Running along here on Locked On NFL, like we always do every Monday with Julian Council, Locked On NFL, and Locked On Carolina Panthers, talking about those Chiefs. The Chiefs just continue. And Julian saw this firsthand yesterday in Carolina. The Chiefs just continue that no matter who they play, the game is going to be close. They can play a little league team, and they're going to have to win by a walk-off field goal. They can play somebody else and might have to win by a walk-off block field goal. Whatever it is, they're doing it. I don't know if it's sustainable, but listen to the Locked On Chiefs crew and let them tell you how they won yesterday.
Chiefs find a way to make it to 10-1 on the season, winning 30-27 against the Carolina Panthers. Absolutely not the way you wanted this game to turn out. Kansas City had a 2-score lead throughout most of this game, and they ended up letting it get down and get close. Panthers scored with just under 2 minutes to go. Kansas City got the ball, went down the field, and got in position for a field goal to win the game by Spencer Schrader, the kicker that is replacing Harrison Butker so far and is doing a great job for him. This is absolutely not the way you wanted this game to go. Kansas City needed to come out and dominate. They didn't do that. They allowed a team that shouldn't have scored close to 30 points, score 27 on them, but they did find a way to get it done. They scored 30 themselves. There's much more over on Locked On Chiefs.
I'm just glad somebody other than, people outside of Kansas City finally admitted it, man. I don't know if this is sustainable, JC.
No, and honestly, Kansas City's offense was not an issue yesterday. They didn't punt the ball until there was 7:01 left in the game. So it's not like the Panthers were getting key stops, but the Chiefs are only 2 for 5 in the red zone. Now, Carolina was 2 for 6. They moved the ball up and down the field all day long on KC. They also only punted 2 times in that game. And if they just make it, there's a minute 46 left. We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew Patrick Mahomes was going to take him down the field and go out there and tie it. And here in Carolina, they're just looking for moral victories. And the fact that Bryce Young played that well against the Steaks-Spagnolo defense is all that really anyone in Carolina cares about. But I tweeted out after the game, Chiefs got away with it again. They keep getting away with it. And I bring up point differential every week. They are now 11th in the NFL, but yet they're sitting here at 10-1. Look at them. Look at the Lions. Look at them. Look at the Eagles. Look at them. Look at Buffalo, who already beat them, and tell me with a straight face you think Kansas City is a better team. They're not. They may be 10-1. They're not that good. Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are. I know. I understand it. It's going to catch up to them in the playoffs, and they damn sure better hope they get that first round bye, because they don't. Super Bowl wildcard weekend, probably going to be walking out of Arrowhead Stadium for loss the way they're going.
Yeah, and let me be a little bit transparent. It's the first time of 2 times I'm gonna be super transparent. I got a fantasy team that went into yesterday at 9-1, right? I actually, out of 12 teams, by far have the lowest scoring fantasy team in the league. It just seems like every time somebody plays me, they just don't score points. Yeah, I got smoked yesterday. And I think it's going to keep happening the rest of the season. I already clinched the playoff spot and everything. But this dudes in the thread say they are absolutely tired of me. And I think people are absolutely getting tired of the Chiefs. I think there's a team in their own division. If they play them again, I do believe they still have a game left. And this loss probably could have already started had Denver been able to make a kick. But the Broncos keep making their push towards a playoff spot. Here is Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos to tell you what they did yesterday.
The Denver Broncos improved to 7-5 after Sunday's victory against the Las Vegas Raiders, 29-19. This is Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos, and Denver holds on late to outlast the Las Vegas Raiders, who made it a little interesting there in that final 4 minutes. Nick Bonito coming up big, but more importantly, Bo Nix's hot play. The trend continues. Court was in session with his 2 touchdown connections to Cortland Sutton on the outside, who came up big for the Broncos, not only in the red zone, but also on several big third down situations. The Broncos unfortunately lose Riley Moss in this game. We'll await further word on his injury status from head coach Sean Payton. But a lot to break down for the Broncos' big victory on Sunday. They have swept the Las Vegas Raiders for the first time since the days of Peyton Manning. Make sure you check out Locked On Broncos for the post-game report.
Denver is the ultimate. They are anti-fake it till you make it. Ain't nothing faking about what they're doing. You know what they're doing? They're winning with blocking, tackling, sound game plans. And they are really now the poster child of, okay, you don't need this quarterback that everybody thinks is going to be good. You just need one that can run the stuff you need him to run and be good in your system.
Yeah, well, Bo Nix may be good. And I was concerned watching his entire career at Auburn for 3 years, the last 2 seasons at Oregon, whether Bo Nix could come in and play this well immediately, because he struggled back in the SEC. Then once he's a senior, then a super senior, you're older than everybody. You've been in college for a long time. Like, you are going to have success against younger players. But in the NFL, you don't get 4 years, 5 years to figure it out. You got to do it immediately, really, nowadays, the way they go with these rookie quarterbacks. In the last 2 weeks, 273 yards passing, 2 touchdowns yesterday against the Raiders, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns against those lowly, terrible Falcons a week ago. He's figuring it out. And we already know Sean Payton is an excellent offensive coach, and he's done a great job of quarterbacks in the past. Now, Drew Brees, you can wonder whether he would have been a Hall of Famer regardless of having Sean Payton, but still, right, that marriage for that decade was excellent. And now he's got a young guy in Bo Nix with a excellent defense on the other side, to where this is going to be a playoff team, and they're going to be scary. If Bo can continue to play like this, and Vance Joseph, which is still one of the weirdest things. I used to be the head coach there. I understand different ownership.
That never happens, does it?
Yeah.
It never happens, does it?
I mean,
you got to be real secure in yourself to do that, man.
I mean, different ownership group, but still the same fan base that wanted him out. He's now coaching one of the best defenses in the league. It's a great story for Denver. I don't think they can win a division because they have 5 losses. I don't think Kansas City is going to lose 4 games over the next 6 weeks, but Los Angeles, they play Kansas City, and Denver, yes, they still play Kansas City, and Houston, who's not looking great right now. There's some losses potentially there for the Chiefs, and maybe a Chargers can slip in there. But yeah, Denver, that's a playoff team, and well done by Sean Payton with Bo Nix and Vance Joseph with that defense this season to get them back in position after really since 2015. They have not been great since they won that Super Bowl and lost Peyton Manning.
Yeah, they're turning into a team that nobody wants to play in the first round. That's what, to me, that's what it's like. Oh no, we don't want to deal with all of that foolishness, even if it's not in the atmosphere. Then you still don't want to deal with it because you really don't want to deal with it in the atmosphere, but you don't want to deal with it in the first round. It's just too much to handle, man. I'm gonna tell you what's too much to handle, man. The madman Tyler Rowland, he's peacocking all over the place with me. If y'all watched the Friday show here, I said something with Gino. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you exactly how I got all smug. You remember how Drake looked at Kendrick, what's his face, on the side? He gave him that little look. Well, broke clock is right twice a day, and that clock is right, and I was wrong. And we're gonna tell you exactly about that, what I'm talking about in just a second here, in the third segment on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. You need to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a little hunch in the middle of the game, you can just check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, it's the barbershop, man. Here, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL with Julian Council, the Monday regular here on the show. Julian, it's time for me. I got to just pay the piper, man. Sometimes you say something and it comes back to bite you. It's not what you said. It's the way you said it. Look, nobody expected the Titans to beat the Texans. And when I was here Friday, what I normally do with my Friday guest, Matt Williamson, we'd run through all the games, and it's real quick and reactive. Well, Gino Camilleri he was here the other day, substituting. He was a substitute guy, substitute because he's locked on NFL, usually on with Tyler. And then he's also a half of Locked On Eagles. I'm going to just show you what I said to him, man. And sometimes, like I say, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Check this out. In that AFC South that you talked about earlier, Houston seems like they have gotten back on track, especially with Nico Collins being back. They host the Tennessee Titans.
Are you really thinking about this?
Are you really? You don't have to.
All right, I'm not hosting with Tyler. I'm not hosting with Tyler. No,
I know you don't have to pretend, man. Go ahead. Tyler Rowland is not here. The madman ain't gonna say nothing to you. I know you ain't sitting there sighing and taking deep breaths.
No, all right,
about this game.
We're gonna go with D'Amico. We're gonna go with that Houston team. I think that with Nico Collins back, man, he's got to be rip roaring and ready to go coming off of what he was doing before that injury. That's a really good football team, and they got to go and crush that division, man.
All right, before we delve off into all of this, and I have to pay the piper. Did you understand what I was trying to say? I mean,
yeah. I mean, we've all seen Tennessee this year, and I think they've been one of the more disappointing teams when you looked at Brian Callahan coming over from Cincinnati, L'Jarius Sneed, and getting over there from Kansas City. And I guess that just goes to show you, I mean, Calvin Ridley as well, that if you win off-season headlines in March, you're likely not going to be a good team. And I'm sorry, Wig, you probably know very well about that in Jacksonville. They won it a lot. So I understand where you were coming from, but I mean, hey, hats off. Look, Will Levis, look at you, the king of whoopsie daisies out here balling. Now he did throw another pick six, though. I did see that.
I saw it yesterday happen, and I'm like, man, they ain't gonna win this game. I know I ain't gonna have to sit here and do exactly what you about to see me do right now. Listen to the madman. I got to take this just like y'all do. Listen to Tyler.
Boom! A massive upset for the Tennessee Titans over the fraudulent Houston Texans. And I got to tell you, your boy called this one, baby. I told you guys that the upset was coming. And here we are. The Tennessee Titans beat the Texans 32-27, and Will Levis led the charge. I think the most impressive thing to me in this game was the Titans' ability to bounce back from adversity. Will Levis throws the pick six. Tony Pollard fumbles. The obvious and constant special teams issues. The fumble by Jaquan Jackson on the punt. So many things went wrong for the Titans, and they continued to bounce back. And then the defense, clutch at the end to close it out. What an incredible win for Brian Callahan and his process. A lot to clean up, but this Tennessee Titans football team is going to be a problem in the back half of the season.
Go ahead, Julian. I ain't got nothing. Go ahead.
I mean, are we sure about that? Hey, good win, obviously, for Tennessee, and the victors, they write history, but we were all focused on the Texans, who are still going to win that division, and there are still concerns about where they're at. Diggs is out for the season. We know they just got Nico Collins back, and CJ hasn't been as good as he was last year, but it's the NFL. He's going to be fine. I think we all understand he's a good player. that's something to monitor moving forward, just where that Texans team is after. Hell, Bobby Slowick should be a head coach. People were telling me last year. That's why you got to give it some time, man. Instead of just going out there and hiring a guy because he had one season where he was able to have a good offense. Maybe look at the players who out there and played well. That's something to monitor. But Tennessee, good win for them. Obviously, hats off to Will Levis and for that organization trying to figure out what they have in him and whether he's their future. I would suggest that he's not. And I could not believe every time I looked up was like, wait, Will Levis is 7 for 7. He's 9 for 9, 11 for 11. Like, what the hell is going on in Tennessee? I just kept seeing it.
What it is, man, is sometimes karma just, I picked on Gino. I made Gino feel bad when he was a guest here. I mean, you don't treat your company like that, man. This ain't got nothing to do with me and Tyler. We always do that kind of stuff, man. But yeah, I look at it and the Jaguars are 2-9, and this was crazy. The Jaguars are mathematically not eliminated from winning the division at 2-9. That shows you that there's just a serious waste of opportunity for this division, and they have gone back to becoming what I call the Mountain West of the NFL. It's like nobody cares. Ain't nobody raising no sand out of the AFC South this year. Real quick, I have to ask you this while I have you here.
Sure.
Have the things about Bryce Young, the team that you cover, because we beat up on Bryce a lot. We talked about him going in and out of the lineup and Dave Tepper. And is this a situation, because we were talking about Levis, now I'm going to bring it back to Bryce. Is it looking up a little bit like you have your finger on the pulse of the team? How is that really, really looking? This isn't like, okay, they're playing a little bit better, but it doesn't mean anything. It looks like this is something that they can build on because they're actually playing really, really well right now.
Yeah, I said on Locked On Panthers yesterday following the game that yesterday's performance against Kansas City was analogous to the one last year against Green Bay, where Bryce Young statistically had his best game and ripped through that Packers defense. Now, we understand the Packers defense was terrible last year, and the coordinator is no longer there in Green Bay. The next week after that, Carolina went to Jacksonville and didn't put up a single point. And David Tepper's throwing drinks on fans in the stands.
I remember.
Like, there was a buildup to this that we did not see last year when Bryce Young had that game against Green Bay. He played well in the Saints game, one of his better games, even if statistically it doesn't look like that on paper. He played well enough in that Giants win. So he put together his best back-to-back performances heading into this matchup, and then he went out there and he excelled in a situation where Carolina was not going to be able to run that football. Steve Spagnuolo was not going to let that happen. They had 3 running back carries for 7 yards in that first half, and the Panthers were in that game because of Bryce Young's ability to throw the ball. So it's changing, and there is certainly hope. Now, it's interesting because would he be in this situation had Andy Dalton not gotten a car accident and sprained his right thumb? That's a fair question to ask. Like, you can sit here and you can credit Dave Canales, Panthers head coach, if you want, but at every turn, Dave Canales has gone with Andy Dalton. After 2 weeks, he benched Bryce Young, which I felt like was way too early. I told people right then and there, cool, you can do it. It does nothing for the franchise to go to Andy Dalton, even if he plays well. He's not the future here in Carolina long-term. Maybe he's a bridge in 2025. And then Dalton didn't light things up after that Raiders and Bengals game, and people were clamoring for Bryce Young again. But yet, Canales sat here every single Monday and said that Andy Dalton gave him the best chance to win. The day before the car accident, he was saying that. He was asked about Bryce Young 3 separate times and refused to say the man's name. He brought up Andy Dalton in his answers each time. Then Andy gets in the car accident. Bryce has to play. And it's like Panthers didn't beat Denver, but then they beat the Saints. They win in Munich, and now they've won this. And back-to-back weeks, he said he's making a statement. He said, hey, I don't have to make any statements. Bryce is making that statement and said, absolutely, he's going to be the starter next week. So it's just funny how that worked out where maybe it was the right decision at the time, but people can't sit here and say that Dave Canales calculatedly sat Bryce Young and that Bryce Young after that time back is better off because Dave Canales sat him down. No, Dave Canales was done with Bryce Young. He had to go back to him because of an injury, and he stuck with him because the team's been winning and Bryce has been improving in confidence and accuracy and just overall understanding of the operation and leadership. So
this is something that's good, though. I talked about this today down the stretch for the Jaguars on my local. I said the Jaguars, though, there's some young guys that have a chance to put something on tape. Bryce Young playing well still bodes well for Carolina because even if somebody wants to, if they're done with him, even it's shown good enough that somebody will say, you know what, there's something there I can work with. There's some Baker Mayfield in there that I can work with, or there's some Darnold in there. And it could be plus. But anytime you have a chance to put something good on tape, good for you. And the reason why I say that about Bryce Young is because we beat him up a little bit on here, and we wanted to, since I'm sitting here in the third segment and I'm eating crow, I'll go and eat a little bit more crow. But this time I like it because it's good for the kid. Julian Council, as always, thank you for joining us here on Monday. You'll be back next week, and we'll run it down again here on Locked On NFL. Y'all make sure y'all tap in and see Tyler Rowland go boom again. He can do that every single day on Locked On NFL, and then slide right here by the barbershop and hear me. Twice a day, we use the local experts to make sure you get the stories that you're supposed to get the way you're supposed to get them. Until tomorrow, we'll see you next time on Locked On NFL.